All right, let's be honest for a second. Hollywood loves a love spell, honey. You've seen the scene before. A witch lights a few candles, mixes some herbs, whispers an incantation, and then suddenly the person they want is obsessed with them by the next scene. It's dramatic, it's seductive, it's also not how spiritual work usually works. So, today we're going to talk about love spells in movies and then answer the question a lot of beginners secretly wonder: are movie love spells realistic? More importantly, what do love spells actually represent from an occult and spiritual perspective? But before we dive in, if you're somebody exploring spirituality beyond traditional religion and you want to have practical conversations about magic and energy and transformation, then please come join us inside the Modern Day Spiritualist community on the school platform. That's where we go deeper into topics just like this. The link is in the description. Now, let's talk about those love spells. All right. Love spells show up constantly in films like Practical Magic, The Craft, The Love Witch, and there's a reason. Love is one of the most powerful human motivations. When people feel powerless in love, they often want control. Love spells in movies symbolize a fantasy. If I just do this ritual, I can make someone love me. But spiritually, love spells represent something much deeper. They're really about magnetism, not control. So, in real spiritual practice, there's a major difference between attraction work and domination work. Attraction work is going to focus on increasing your magnetism, clearing emotional blocks, amplifying that desire energy, calling in aligned partners. Domination work, on the other hand, it attempts to influence someone's will, manipulate feelings, force attachment. Most healthy spiritual traditions, though, discourage the second. Why? Because love that is forced is not sustainable. Even in magical systems that acknowledge influence work, practitioners understand that energy manipulation has consequences. So the Hollywood version is definitely simplified. Real spiritual practice tends to focus more on alignment and attraction than control. What do the movies accidentally get right? Interestingly, movies sometimes stumble onto real occult ideas without explaining them. So, for example, in Practical Magic, remember the love spell that's cast and it creates like the unintended consequences? This reflects a real spiritual principle. Energy work can ripple outward in ways that you didn't expect and that you probably don't damn want. Another example is in The Craft, where the character who casts a love spell becomes overwhelmed by the result. That's actually a symbolic warning. When you manipulate energy without emotional maturity, it can spiral very quickly. So, the deeper lesson hidden in these stories is that power amplifies intention. Now, from an occult perspective, love magic isn't just about, the romance of it all. It's about magnetism. And magnetism is the energetic force that makes somebody intriguing or attractive or captivating. Like you've seen that person, like when you really look at them for real, it's like, they ain't even really all that cute, but I'm so attracted to them, right? Don't act like I'm the only one. And it also makes them memorable. And so, interestingly, this type of energy is something many spiritual traditions do acknowledge. In different systems, it can be described as charisma or like the life force, aura, feminine power, spiritual radiance. I've heard somebody use that term before and I thought that was cute. This is why beauty rituals and self care rituals and confidence practices show up historically in spiritual traditions because they weren't just about vanity, but they were definitely about energetic attraction, which is something a lot of modern spiritualists are rediscovering. Now, why do these love spells fascinate beginners? Well, that's because beginners often become curious about love spells because love is emotional. When people feel rejected or abandoned or unseen, they want something that will still restore that control, right? But the deeper spiritual lesson is this: the most powerful form of love magic is self magnetism. When someone becomes emotionally grounded and energetically aligned and confident in their presence, then they can naturally attract more attention, which is why many spiritual traditions focus on aura strengthening, emotional healing, self worth, embodiment, because those are the things that increase magnetism naturally without forcing anyone to do anything. Now, from a modern spiritualist perspective, love magic is better understood as energetic alignment work. So instead of trying to force a specific person to love you, because they never will, it'll never work. Can't force anybody to love you. The deeper work is becoming someone whose energy attracts the type of love that you desire. And that involves emotional clarity, energetic hygiene, personal magnetism, self respect. So when those things align, then relationships begin to shift naturally. And interestingly, that's something that Hollywood rarely talks about because transformation is slower than a dramatic spell scene, right? But spiritually, it's far more powerful. So, are movie love spells realistic? Not really. They're exaggerated for storytelling, but they are inspired by real spiritual ideas about energy, attraction, and attention. And if you look closely, many of these films actually contain hidden warnings about using power without wisdom, which is a lesson that applies far beyond magic. Now, if you enjoyed this episode of Occult on Screen, let me know in the comments, okay, girl? Now, what movie or show should we break down next? Because once you start seeing the symbolism, you'll realize it's everywhere. See you in the next episode.